Ladies and gentlemen, responsibility is the foundation upon which a meaningful life is built. It is the weight we carry, the burden we bear, and yet paradoxically, it is also the source of our greatest strength and fulfillment. Without responsibility, life drifts into chaos, lacking direction and purpose. But when we choose to take ownership of our actions, our choices, and our future, we unlock the potential to create something truly significant. A meaningful life does not come from comfort alone, nor does it emerge from the mere pursuit of pleasure. While happiness is fleeting, meaning is enduring. It arises when we confront challenges, when we take on duties that matter, not just for ourselves, but for those around us. It comes when we decide to be the kind of person who can be relied upon, who stands firm when others falter, who carries the load even when it is heavy. Each of us has within us the ability to transform our lives through responsibility. It begins with small acts, keeping promises, showing up when it matters, speaking the truth even when it is difficult. Over time, these seemingly small choices accumulate, shaping our character and defining who we become. Responsibility teaches us discipline, resilience, and courage. It pushes us beyond our limits and helps us discover what we are truly capable of. Yet, responsibility is not simply an obligation, it is also a privilege. It allows us to contribute something meaningful to the world. The most admirable figures in history, those who left behind legacies worth remembering, were not those who avoided hardship, but those who embraced it. They recognized that responsibility is not a burden to be shunned, but a calling to be answered. A life without responsibility is a life without meaning. It may offer temporary comfort, but it will never bring fulfillment. When we avoid responsibility, we deny ourselves the opportunity to grow, to make a difference, and to become something greater than we are. It is through responsibility that we find our purpose, that we shape not only our own destiny, but also the world around us. So let us not shrink from the challenges before us. Let us take responsibility for our lives, for our families, for our communities. Let us be the ones who build, who support, who lead. Because in doing so, we will not only create a better world, we will also discover the deep and abiding sense of meaning that makes life truly worth living. Responsibility is the foundation of a meaningful life. It is the force that gives structure and direction to our existence, shaping us into individuals capable of overcoming adversity and making a difference in the world. Without responsibility, life becomes chaotic, uncertain, and devoid of true purpose. It is through responsibility that we cultivate discipline, resilience, and a sense of self-worth, all of which contribute to a life that is rich in meaning and fulfillment. From an early age, we are introduced to the concept of responsibility, though we may not always recognize its significance. A child learns to care for their belongings, to complete their homework, and to treat others with respect. These seemingly small lessons lay the groundwork for a life governed by accountability and purpose. As we grow, the responsibilities we face become more complex, extending beyond personal obligations to our families, communities, and even society at large. Every step we take toward accepting responsibility strengthens our character and deepens our understanding of what it means to live with purpose. There is an undeniable connection between responsibility and personal growth. When we take responsibility for our actions, we acknowledge that our choices have consequences both for ourselves and for those around us. This awareness fosters a sense of maturity and self-discipline, pushing us to make decisions that align with our values and aspirations. It is easy to blame external factors for our shortcomings, but true strength lies in recognizing that we have the power to shape our own lives. The moment we accept responsibility, we reclaim control over our destiny, refusing to be passive participants in our own existence. Responsibility is not simply about fulfilling obligations. It is about rising to challenges and embracing the difficulties that life inevitably presents. Many people attempt to avoid responsibility, believing that it is synonymous with hardship and restriction. However, what they fail to realize is that responsibility is also the key to true freedom. When we take responsibility for our actions, we free ourselves from the constraints of excuses and self-doubt. We develop the confidence to tackle obstacles head-on, knowing that we have the ability to influence the course of our lives. A meaningful life is not built on fleeting moments of pleasure or effortless success. Instead, it is constructed through perseverance, effort, and a willingness to take on the weight of responsibility. The most inspiring individuals throughout history are not those who shied away from duty, but those who embraced it fully. They recognize that responsibility is not a burden to be avoided, but a gift that allows us to contribute something valuable to the world. Whether in the form of leadership, innovation, or simple acts of kindness, those who take responsibility shape the future and leave a lasting impact. At its core, responsibility teaches us discipline. When we commit to something, be it a job, a relationship, or a personal goal, we learn to follow through even when the path is difficult. This sense of discipline becomes a guiding force, helping us stay focused and dedicated to our aspirations. Without responsibility, we risk becoming aimless, drifting from one pursuit to another without ever truly investing ourselves in anything meaningful. Discipline gives us the ability to push forward, to work hard even when motivation wanes, and to remain steadfast in the face of adversity. Moreover, responsibility fosters resilience. Life is filled with challenges and setbacks are inevitable. However, those who embrace responsibility develop the strength to withstand difficulties and emerge stronger on the other side. They do not see failure as a reason to quit, but as an opportunity to learn and grow. Every hardship faced with responsibility becomes a stepping stone toward greater wisdom and capability. This resilience is what allows people to build lives that are not only successful, but also deeply fulfilling. Beyond personal growth, responsibility also strengthens our relationships. When we take responsibility for our words and actions, we build trust and reliability. People are drawn to those who can be counted on, those who keep their promises and stand by their commitments. Whether in friendships, family, or professional environments, responsibility is the foundation of strong and lasting connections. It demonstrates respect for others and a willingness to contribute positively to the lives of those around us. Furthermore, responsibility extends beyond individual concerns to the broader world. Society thrives when individuals take responsibility for their roles, whether as citizens, leaders, or members of a community. When people step up to address issues rather than waiting for someone else to act, meaningful change occurs. The most significant progress in history has been driven by those who understood their responsibility to something greater than themselves. They did not wait for conditions to be perfect or for others to take the lead. They accepted the challenge and worked tirelessly to make a difference. Ultimately, responsibility is what separates a meaningful life from an aimless existence. It is the force that drives us to improve ourselves, to care for others, and to leave the world better than we found it. Without responsibility, life loses its depth, becoming a series of disconnected events rather than a cohesive journey of growth and purpose. It is only when we take responsibility that we unlock our full potential and discover the true significance of our existence. A meaningful life does not come from comfort alone, nor does it emerge from the mere pursuit of pleasure. While happiness is fleeting, meaning is enduring. It arises when we confront challenges, take on responsibilities that matter, and commit ourselves to something greater than our own immediate desires. The idea that happiness should be the primary goal of life is a common misconception. While joy and pleasure are important, they are temporary states, often dependent on external circumstances. Meaning, on the other hand, is something deeper, something that can sustain a person through hardship and adversity. It is not found in a life of ease, but in a life of purpose, dedication, and responsibility. Pleasure and comfort, though enjoyable, do not provide long-term fulfillment. A person who prioritizes only their own satisfaction may find themselves feeling empty despite having everything they thought they wanted. Material success, leisure, and the avoidance of struggle can provide temporary gratification, but they do not create a sense of purpose. True meaning comes from duty, from the willingness to take on obligations that go beyond oneself, to contribute to the well-being of others, and to make a difference in the world. This sense of duty does not arise from external pressure alone. It is an intrinsic call that each person must answer for themselves. Responsibility adds depth and significance to life. It gives people a reason to wake up in the morning, a sense that their actions matter. Those who dedicate themselves to meaningful pursuits, whether it be raising a family, pursuing a vocation with integrity, or serving their community, experience a kind of fulfillment that is far more profound than the fleeting pleasures of an easy life. This is because responsibility requires effort, sacrifice, and persistence, and through these struggles, people grow in strength and character. A common belief in modern society is that a stress-free, effortless life is the ideal. Many seek to minimize hardship, to avoid obligations, and to pursue leisure as the ultimate goal. Yet, paradoxically, this avoidance of responsibility often leads to dissatisfaction. A life without struggle is a life without growth. It is through facing difficulties and carrying burdens that people develop resilience, wisdom, and a deeper appreciation for the things that truly matter. Those who embrace challenges rather than avoid them find that their lives take on a sense of richness and depth that cannot be achieved through comfort alone. The most meaningful experiences in life often involve struggle. Consider the dedication required to build a strong and lasting relationship. Love is not simply about enjoying the good moments. It is about weathering difficulties together, showing up when it is hard, and taking responsibility for one another's well-being. Parenting is another example. Raising a child is one of the most demanding responsibilities a person can take on, yet it is also one of the most deeply meaningful. The sacrifices made, the sleepless nights, the constant effort to nurture and guide another human being, all of these struggles contribute to an experience that is rich in purpose. Similarly, pursuing excellence in a career, mastering a craft, or dedicating oneself to a cause requires perseverance and commitment. Those who devote themselves to meaningful work understand that fulfillment does not come from taking the easiest path, but from engaging fully with their responsibilities, even when it is difficult. The satisfaction of achieving something worthwhile, of knowing that one's efforts have made a real difference, far outweighs the temporary pleasure of avoiding hardship. History is filled with examples of individuals who chose duty over comfort and in doing so shaped the world for the better. The great leaders, thinkers, and innovators of the past did not achieve significance by seeking an easy life. They faced obstacles, endured hardship, and remained committed to their responsibilities despite the difficulties. Their legacy is a testament to the power of meaning over pleasure, to the idea that true fulfillment comes not from seeking personal gratification, but from dedicating oneself to something of lasting value. In contrast, those who seek only comfort and pleasure often find themselves unfulfilled. The pursuit of short-term gratification can lead to a sense of emptiness, as pleasure alone is not enough to sustain a meaningful life. Many who achieve financial success, fame, or a life of luxury still find themselves searching for something more. This is because meaning does not come from external rewards, but from a sense of purpose, a commitment to something greater than oneself. Ultimately, responsibility is what transforms life from a series of fleeting pleasures into a journey of purpose and significance. It is what allows people to endure hardship with dignity, to find fulfillment in their work, and to build relationships that withstand the test of time. Meaning is not something that is simply given. It must be earned through effort, dedication, and a willingness to carry the burdens that life presents. Those who embrace responsibility, who commit themselves to their duties despite the challenges, will find that their lives are not just happy in a temporary sense, but deeply and profoundly meaningful. Small acts of responsibility shape our character in profound ways. Every choice we make, no matter how minor it may seem, contributes to the person we are becoming. Keeping promises, being reliable, speaking the truth even when it is difficult. These are not just isolated behaviors, but the building blocks of integrity and strength. Character is not something that appears overnight. It is forged through consistent action, through the daily decisions we make about how to live and how to treat others. One of the simplest but most important aspects of responsibility is keeping promises. When we commit to something, whether it is as small as showing up on time or as significant as supporting a loved one through hardship, we demonstrate reliability. Trust is built not through grand gestures, but through consistency. A person who follows through on their commitments, even when it is inconvenient, earns the respect and confidence of those around them. Conversely, breaking promises, even small ones, erodes trust and weakens relationships. Being responsible means understanding that our word carries weight, and that honoring our commitments shapes both how others see us and how we see ourselves. Reliability is another fundamental aspect of character that is cultivated through responsibility. A reliable person is someone others can depend on, someone who does what they say they will do. This may seem like a simple virtue, but in practice, it is a rare and valuable trait. In work, relationships, and personal growth, Reliability is what separates those who achieve meaningful success from those who drift aimlessly. It is easy to make commitments when things are going well, but true responsibility is proven in difficult times. When showing up requires effort, when staying true to one's word means making sacrifices. Each time we choose to be dependable, we reinforce the kind of person we are becoming. Speaking the truth, even when it is difficult, is another small yet powerful act of responsibility. Honesty requires courage because it often means confronting uncomfortable reality. It is tempting to avoid difficult conversations, to remain silent when we see something wrong, or to tell people what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. However, choosing to speak the truth builds character and integrity. A person who is honest, even at personal cost, gains the respect of others, and more importantly, self-respect. Dishonesty, on the other hand, weakens character over time. Small lies, when repeated, become habits, and eventually they shape a person into someone who cannot be trusted. Responsibility means having the strength to be honest, even when it is challenging. Each of these small acts, keeping promises, being reliable, and telling the truth, may seem minor on their own, but together they create a foundation for a strong and meaningful life. They cultivate discipline, teaching us to do what is right even when it is not easy. They build resilience, helping us navigate difficulties without losing sight of our values. They develop courage, allowing us to stand firm in the face of challenges. Discipline is one of the most valuable traits that responsibility fosters. Many people wait for motivation to take action, but motivation is unreliable. It fluctuates with mood, energy levels, and circumstances. Discipline, on the other hand, is a steady force that is built through small, consistent choices, waking up on time, fulfilling obligations, resisting distractions, and following through on commitments. Over time, these small acts of discipline accumulate, making us stronger, more capable, and more prepared to handle greater responsibilities. Resilience is another quality that grows when we practice responsibility. Life is unpredictable and setbacks are inevitable. However, those who have built strong character through responsible actions are better equipped to handle difficulties. They do not crumble under pressure because they have developed the habit of perseverance. A responsible person understands that failure is not an excuse to quit, but an opportunity to learn and improve. They push forward, knowing that enduring hardship is part of the journey toward growth and success. Courage, too, is strengthened through responsibility. When we hold ourselves accountable for our actions and our words, we develop the confidence to face challenges head-on. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Every time we choose responsibility over avoidance, we reinforce our ability to confront difficulties rather than run from them. Over time, this builds the inner strength that allows us to take on greater challenges, stand up for our beliefs, and make meaningful contributions to the world. In the grand scheme of life, it is not the extraordinary moments that define us, but the small, everyday decisions we make. Every act of responsibility, no matter how minor, shapes our character. Each time we choose integrity over dishonesty, follow through over excuses, and reliability over negligence, we strengthen the foundation upon which a meaningful life is built. Responsibility is not just about fulfilling duties. It is about becoming the kind of person who is capable of facing life's challenges with strength, wisdom, and integrity. Responsibility is not simply an obligation. It is also a privilege. It allows us to contribute something meaningful to the world, to create, to build, and to be part of something greater than ourselves. Too often, people view responsibility as a burden, something that limits freedom, adds stress, or restricts personal enjoyment. However, this perspective misses a deeper truth. Responsibility is what gives life purpose and depth. It is through taking on responsibility that we grow into our full potential, develop strong relationships, and leave a lasting impact on the world. The idea of responsibility as a privilege may seem counterintuitive at first. Many associate privilege with ease and comfort, with the ability to avoid hardship rather than embrace it. However, true privilege is not about escaping responsibility. It is about having the opportunity to take on meaningful challenges. To be responsible for something, whether it is a family, a career, a community, or even one's own personal growth, is to be given the chance to shape the world in a way that matters. It is a sign that others trust and depend on us, that our actions have significance, and that we have the capacity to make a difference. Consider the example of parenthood. Raising a child is one of the most demanding responsibilities a person can take on, requiring sacrifice, patience, and unwavering commitment. Yet, it is also one of the most profound and rewarding experiences life has to offer. A parent is given the privilege of shaping another human being, of guiding them through life, teaching them values, and helping them become independent, capable individuals. While the responsibility of parenthood can be overwhelming at times, it is also a gift, a chance to create something meaningful that will outlast one's own life. This same principle applies to all forms of responsibility. A person who is given a leadership role in their career or community may feel the weight of expectation, but they also have the privilege of influencing others, solving problems, and driving progress. A student who takes responsibility for their education may feel pressure to perform, but they are also privileged to have access to knowledge and the opportunity to build a future. A person who takes responsibility for their health may have to make sacrifices, but they are also given the privilege of a longer, healthier life. Responsibility is challenging, but it is also deeply rewarding, and it is a sign that we are engaged in something that truly matters. Beyond personal fulfillment, responsibility is also what allows us to build trust and respect in our relationships. People are drawn to those who are dependable, who take their commitments seriously, and who can be counted on when it matters most. A person who avoids responsibility may find temporary relief from stress, but they also risk damaging their relationships and losing the trust of those around them. On the other hand, those who embrace responsibility earn the respect of others, and they build strong, lasting connections based on reliability and integrity. The most admirable figures in history are those who did not shy away from responsibility but embraced it fully. Whether they were leaders, thinkers, or everyday individuals who stood up for what was right, they understood that responsibility is not a burden to be avoided, but a calling to be answered. They did not wait for someone else to take action. They stepped forward, took ownership of their role in the world, and made sacrifices for the greater good. Their lives were not defined by comfort or ease, but by meaning, purpose, and contribution. Responsibility also grants a sense of autonomy and control over one's life. People who take responsibility for their actions and choices are not at the mercy of circumstances. They shape their own destiny. Instead of blaming others for their problems or waiting for external forces to change their situation, they take action. They recognize that while they may not control everything that happens to them, they do control how they respond. This sense of ownership over one's life leads to confidence, resilience, and the ability to navigate challenges with strength and purpose. Conversely, those who avoid responsibility often find themselves feeling powerless. When people refuse to take ownership of their actions, they place their fate in the hands of others. They become passive observers of their own lives, reacting rather than acting, blaming rather than solving. This mindset leads not to freedom, but to frustration, dissatisfaction, and a lack of fulfillment. True empowerment comes from taking responsibility, from recognizing that even in difficult circumstances, we have the ability to make choices that shape our future. The world thrives when people embrace responsibility, and it suffers when people reject it. Families grow stronger when individuals take responsibility for their roles as parents, siblings, and partners. Communities flourish when people step up to solve problems rather than waiting for someone else to do it. Societies advance when individuals take responsibility for innovation, justice, and progress. Every major achievement in human history has been the result of people willing to bear the weight of responsibility, to commit themselves to something greater than their own comfort, and to push forward even when the path was difficult. Ultimately, responsibility is not a punishment. It is an opportunity. It is what allows us to build a life that is rich in meaning, to forge deep connections with others, and to leave behind a legacy that matters. Those who embrace responsibility will find that it does not limit their freedom, it expands it. It does not drain their energy, it gives them purpose. And it does not make life harder in a meaningless way, it makes life harder in a way that is worth it. Responsibility is not just something we must endure, it is something we are privileged to have. Avoiding responsibility may seem like an easy way to escape stress, pressure, and difficulty, but in the long run, it leads to a life of emptiness and dissatisfaction. While it might provide temporary relief from hardship, a life without responsibility lacks true fulfillment, purpose, and growth. When people reject responsibility, they also reject the opportunity to develop their character, contribute to something meaningful, and build lasting relationships. The illusion of freedom that comes from avoiding responsibility is just that, an illusion. In reality, it leads to a lack of direction, a sense of aimlessness, and a growing feeling that life has no deeper significance. At first glance, avoiding responsibility may seem like an appealing choice. It allows people to escape difficult tasks, postpone important decisions, and avoid the burden of accountability. However, this avoidance comes at a cost. A person who refuses to take responsibility for their actions, decisions, and commitments often finds themselves feeling lost and disconnected. Without responsibility, there is no clear purpose, no meaningful challenge to strive toward, and no lasting sense of accomplishment. Instead of shaping their own future, they become passive participants in life, drifting from one temporary pleasure to another, but never truly satisfied. One of the most significant consequences of avoiding responsibility is a lack of personal growth. Growth requires effort, struggle, and the willingness to face challenges head-on. When people avoid responsibility, they deprive themselves of the very experiences that make them stronger, wiser, and more capable. Learning from mistakes, overcoming difficulties, and working toward meaningful goals are all essential for self-improvement. Those who consistently run from responsibility fail to develop resilience, discipline, and confidence, all of which are crucial for a fulfilling life. Consider the impact of responsibility avoidance in different areas of life. In personal relationships, avoiding responsibility often leads to broken trust, failed commitments, and superficial connections. A person who refuses to take responsibility for their actions in a relationship will struggle to build deep and meaningful bonds. They may blame others for their problems, refuse to acknowledge their faults, and expect others to carry the emotional burden for them. Over time, this pattern erodes trust and pushes people away. On the other hand, taking responsibility for one's words, actions, and mistakes strengthens relationships and fosters mutual respect and understanding. In the workplace, responsibility is what distinguishes successful individuals from those who remain stagnant. Employees who take ownership of their work, meet deadlines, and hold themselves accountable for their performance earn the trust and respect of their colleagues and superiors. Conversely, those who avoid responsibility often find themselves overlooked, struggling to advance, and feeling unfulfilled in their roles. They may make excuses, shift blame, or put in minimal effort, but in the end, this approach only leads to frustration and a lack of career growth. True professional success comes from taking initiative, embracing responsibility, and striving for excellence. Avoiding responsibility also leads to a sense of helplessness. When people refuse to take charge of their lives, they become dependent on others to solve their problems. They wait for circumstances to change instead of taking action, leading to feelings of powerlessness and frustration. Those who take responsibility, however, understand that while they may not control everything in life, they do have control over their own actions and choices. This sense of ownership empowers them to overcome obstacles, create opportunities, and shape their own destiny. Furthermore, a lack of responsibility can lead to regret. Many people who spend their lives avoiding responsibility eventually look back and realize that they missed valuable opportunities to grow, contribute, and make a difference. The easy path, the one that avoids challenge and commitment, rarely leads to true fulfillment. When people avoid responsibility, they rob themselves of the chance to build something meaningful, whether it is a career, a strong family, or a lasting legacy. The realization that they could have done more, taken more risks, or made more of an impact can be deeply painful. Society as a whole also suffers when responsibility is neglected. Communities function best when individuals take responsibility for their actions and contribute positively to the world around them. When people refuse to step up, whether as leaders, workers, parents, or citizens, problems go unsolved, opportunities are wasted, and progress stalls. The greatest advancements in history have come from those who embraced responsibility, even when it was difficult. Every major achievement, from scientific discoveries to social reforms, has been driven by individuals who were willing to take on responsibility rather than avoid it. Ultimately, while responsibility can be challenging, it is also what makes life meaningful. It provides a sense of direction, fosters personal growth, strengthens relationships, and allows people to contribute to something greater than themselves. Those who embrace responsibility find that their lives have purpose, while those who avoid it often feel empty and unfulfilled. Taking responsibility may require effort, sacrifice, and persistence, but in the end, it is the only path to a truly meaningful and rewarding life. Responsibility is not merely an obligation. It is the foundation of a meaningful life. Through responsibility, we find purpose, develop character, and leave a lasting impact on the world. When we embrace responsibility, we acknowledge that our actions matter, that we have a role to play in shaping our own lives and the lives of those around us. It is in carrying burdens, facing challenges, and committing ourselves to something greater than mere personal comfort that we discover the deepest forms of fulfillment. One of the most profound aspects of responsibility is that it gives life structure and direction. Without responsibility, life becomes chaotic, aimless, and lacking in depth. People who refuse to take on responsibilities often find themselves drifting, unsure of what truly matters. They may chase after pleasure, comfort, or temporary distractions, but these pursuits do not lead to long-term satisfaction. In contrast, those who take responsibility for their choices, their relationships, and their personal growth build lives that are rich in meaning and purpose. They have a sense of direction, a clear set of values, and a deep understanding of what they are working toward. A meaningful life is not simply about avoiding pain or seeking pleasure. It is about making a difference. It is about knowing that one's actions contribute to something valuable, whether that be a family, a community, a profession, or a cause. People who embrace responsibility recognize that they are not just passive observers in life. They are active participants who have the power to shape their own destiny. They take ownership of their actions, knowing that the choices they make today will determine the kind of person they become tomorrow. The path of responsibility is not always easy, but it is rewarding. Life is filled with struggles, setbacks, and hardships. But those who bear their responsibilities with courage and perseverance develop resilience. They learn that difficulties are not merely obstacles, but opportunities for growth. The challenges they face make them stronger, wiser, and more capable of handling even greater responsibilities in the future. In contrast, those who avoid responsibility often find themselves overwhelmed by even the smallest difficulties because they have never developed the strength to endure hardship. Taking responsibility also fosters deep and meaningful relationships. Trust, respect, and love are built on a foundation of reliability and commitment. A person who takes responsibility for their words and actions is someone others can depend on. Whether in friendships, family relationships, or romantic partnerships, responsibility is what allows connections to thrive. When people take ownership of their role in a relationship, they create an environment of mutual support and understanding. On the other hand, those who refuse to take responsibility often find themselves isolated as their unreliability erodes trust and weakens their connections with others. Moreover, responsibility is what allows people to leave behind a legacy that matters, whether through raising children, mentoring others, contributing to a profession, or working to improve society. Those who take responsibility have the ability to create something that outlasts them. Their efforts, sacrifices, and commitments shape the world in ways that continue even after they are gone. The greatest figures in history, those who have inspired, led, and transformed the world, were individuals who did not shy away from responsibility. They understood that meaning is not found in avoiding difficulty, but in embracing it for the sake of something greater. As we move forward in life, the question we must ask ourselves is not whether we should take on responsibility, but rather what kind of responsibility we are willing to bear. Will we choose to carry burdens that matter, to commit ourselves to something worthwhile, to build rather than simply consume? Will we strive to be individuals who can be trusted, who make a difference, and who take ownership of our own lives? The power of responsibility is that it transforms us. It takes us from a place of aimlessness to a place of purpose, from weakness to strength, from self-indulgence to self-respect. It is not the easiest path, but it is the most meaningful. And in the end, a life of responsibility is a life well lived.